The phone screen glowed in the darkness of my bedroom, and I stared at it like it was a snake coiled and ready to strike. 15 missed calls. 15. From a man who'd sent me a text just 10 minutes earlier telling me not to call him, that I wasn't his property, that he'd be late. I'd replied with 7 words that apparently shattered his world. I'm not your wife anymore. Don't come back. But let me back up, because that moment didn't happen in a vacuum. It was the culmination of 1,000 small deaths, 1,000 tiny moments where I disappeared a little more, where Naomi became just the woman who waited at home while Julian lived his life. It started 3 hours earlier on a Tuesday evening in March. I was in our kitchen, my kitchen now, chopping vegetables for a dinner that would go cold and uneaten. Again. The countertops were spotless because I'd learned to keep things perfect, learned that a clean house somehow made up for an empty marriage. My phone buzzed. I wiped my hands on a towel and picked it up, expecting maybe a message saying he was on his way. We'd had plans, not anything special, just dinner together like normal married people do. Or like they're supposed to do. The text read, "Don't call me. I'll be late. You're not my property." I read it 3 times. Then 3 more. Each word felt like a slap, but it was that middle sentence that made something inside me crack wide open. You're not my property. As if I'd ever acted like I owned him. As if asking my husband to come home for dinner was some sort of crime. But that last part, that's what did it. Not, I'm not your property, which would have been its own kind of statement, but telling me that I wasn't his. Like he was reminding himself more than telling me. Like he needed to create distance to justify something. I set down the knife. My hands were steady, which surprised me. I'd imagined this moment before in the quiet spaces between sleep and waking, but I'd always pictured myself crying, breaking down, falling apart. Instead, I felt cold and clear, like I'd been waiting for this excuse my entire marriage. I typed back, "I'm not your wife anymore. Don't come back." Then I hit send before I could second-guess myself. I went back to chopping vegetables, though I don't know why. Habit maybe. The sound of the knife against the cutting board was rhythmic, almost meditative. Celery, then carrots, then bell peppers. Red ones because I'd stopped buying the green ones Julian preferred months ago and he'd never even noticed. My phone started ringing 40 seconds later. I glanced at the screen. Julian. I let it ring. It went to voicemail. Immediately it rang again. I turned off the sound and flipped it face down on the counter. The thing is, I knew. Maybe I'd known for months, or maybe I'd known from the beginning and just refused to see it. Julian had been distant since January, maybe earlier. Late nights at work, weekends spent at the office, phone calls he took in other rooms. He'd stopped looking at me, really looking at me the way he used to. We'd been married for 6 years. Together for 8. I was 29 years old, and I'd spent nearly a third of my life with this man, and I suddenly couldn't remember the last time he'd asked me about my day. About my work. About anything that mattered to me. I'd been running my own graphic design business from home for 3 years. Small clients, mostly local businesses that needed logos or websites or marketing materials. It paid the bills, or half of them anyway. Julian made more than I did, worked for some tech company doing something with data analysis that he'd stopped trying to explain to me around year 2. My phone kept lighting up with calls. I counted them in my peripheral vision while I finished making dinner. 5, 7, 10, 12. By the time I'd plated the food and covered it with foil, there were 15 missed calls. I picked up my phone and opened the text thread. Below my message, Julian had written, "Naomi, please answer. Where's this coming from? We need to talk." Then, "Pick up the phone." Then, "This isn't funny." Then, "I'm coming home right now." I read them all without feeling anything. It was like watching a stranger's drama unfold on social media. Interesting maybe, but not something that touched me personally. I walked to the bedroom and pulled a suitcase from the closet. It was one of those large ones we'd used for our honeymoon, back when Julian had looked at me like I was the only person in the world who mattered. I couldn't remember the last time he'd looked at me like that. I started filling the suitcase with Julian's clothes. Shirts first, the expensive ones he wore to work. Then pants, still creased from the dry cleaner. Socks, underwear, shoes. I was methodical about it, folding everything neatly because that's the kind of person I am. Am trying not to be. My phone rang again. Not Julian this time. Renee, my best friend since college. I answered. "Girl, are you okay?" Her voice was sharp with concern. "Julian just called me asking if you were with me." He sounded frantic. "What happened?" I sat down on the edge of the bed, surrounded by my husband's belongings. "I left him." "You what?" "I told him not to come home. I'm packing his things now." Silence on the other end. "Then, I'm coming over." "You don't have to." Naomi, I'm already in my car. That's the thing about Renee. She'd been watching me disappear into this marriage for years, biting her tongue when I made excuses for Julian's absences, his distance, his gradual erasure of me. But she never said I told you so, never made me feel stupid for staying too long. I hung up and went back to packing. 2 suitcases worth of clothes. Toiletries from the bathroom, everything that was his. His laptop from the study. The gifts I'd given him over the years that he'd never really appreciated, still in their boxes. I was dragging the suitcases to the living room when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost didn't read it, but something made me open it. This is Simone from Julian's office. I think we should talk. I stared at the message. Simone. I'd met her once at a company party last year. Tall, pretty, ambitious. Julian had mentioned her a few times in passing, always in a professional context. Project deadlines. Client meetings. Strategy sessions. I didn't reply. Instead, I took a screenshot and saved it. Then I blocked the number. The doorbell rang and I checked the security camera on my phone. Renee holding a bottle of wine and a bag from the Thai place we both loved. I let her in. She took one look at the suitcases in the hallway and the expression on my face, and she knew. She set down the wine and the food and pulled me into a hug. Tell me everything, she said. So I did. I told her about the text, about the months of distance, about how I'd felt like a ghost in my own home. I told her about the late nights and the excuses and the way Julian had stopped seeing me as a person and started seeing me as an obligation. And this Simone woman? Renee asked. I think she's the reason. Renee's jaw tightened. Do you want to know for sure? I already know. We sat in the living room eating Thai food straight from the containers because I couldn't be bothered with plates. My phone continued to light up with texts from Julian. I didn't read them. Renee did, though, narrating each one with increasing disgust. He's saying it's a misunderstanding, she said. He's saying you're overreacting. Oh, this one's good. He's saying he loves you and you need to calm down and talk to him like an adult. I took another bite of pad thai. Block him. Really? Block him. She did, with visible satisfaction. We were finishing dinner when I heard a car in the driveway. The security camera showed Julian getting out of his BMW, his tie loose, his face a mixture of anger and panic. He tried his key in the door. It didn't work. I'd called a locksmith 2 hours ago, paid extra for emergency service. Julian pounded on the door. Naomi, open the door. We need to talk about this. Renee and I watched him through the camera on my phone. He looked frantic, desperate. Nothing like the cold, distant man who'd been living in this house for the past few months. I'm not opening the door, I called through it. Your things are in the garage. The code is the same. Take them and leave. I'm not leaving until we talk. Then you'll be standing out there a long time. He pounded again and I heard our neighbor Mr. Patterson's porch light come on across the street. Julian must have noticed too because the pounding stopped. Naomi, please. I don't understand what's happening. Just talk to me. Renee made a disgusted sound. He really thinks you're stupid. I walked closer to the door, close enough that I knew Julian could hear me clearly. The text you sent tonight wasn't the first time you've told me I'm not your property, Julian. You've been showing me that for months. I'm just finally believing you. That's not what I meant. Contact my lawyer. His name is Robert Chin, downtown office. I'll send you his information. I'm not talking to a lawyer. We don't need lawyers. We can work this out. I didn't respond. After a few more minutes of silence, I heard his footsteps walking away, then the garage door opening, then his car starting up and driving away. Renee squeezed my hand. You did good. I nodded, but I didn't feel good. I didn't feel anything except tired and oddly relieved, like I'd been holding my breath for years and could finally exhale. My phone buzzed. A text from the number I'd blocked earlier, Simone, coming through my email now. He told me you two were separated. I wouldn't have gotten involved if I'd known you were still together. I showed Renee. She read it and shook her head. They always say that. Do you think it's true? Does it matter? She was right. It didn't matter if Julian had lied to Simone or if she'd known all along. It didn't matter if this had been going on for 2 months or 8 months or a year. What mattered was that I was done. I typed a reply to Simone. We were married. Now we're not. Whatever else you need to know, ask him. I'm not part of this anymore. Then I blocked her email too. Renee stayed until midnight, making sure I was okay, helping me move Julian's remaining things to the garage, sitting with me in the quiet house that was slowly becoming mine again. When she left, she made me promise to call if I needed anything, anytime, day or night. I locked the door behind her and stood in my living room, in my house, in my life that was suddenly just mine again. The silence was different now. Not empty. Just quiet. Peaceful, almost. I picked up my phone one last time before bed and looked at the original text from Julian. Don't call me. I'll be late. You're not my property. He was right about that last part, at least. I wasn't his property. I never had been. I'd just forgotten that for a while. Tomorrow I'd call Robert Chin. Tomorrow I'd start the paperwork. Tomorrow I'd begin the process of legally ending what had emotionally ended months ago. But tonight I was just going to sleep in my bed in my house as myself, without waiting for someone who'd stopped coming home long before I told him not to. I woke up at 6:30 the next morning, which was unusual because I hadn't set an alarm. For the first time in months, maybe years, I'd slept through the night without waking up to check if Julian had come home, without listening for his car in the driveway, without that low-level anxiety humming through my dreams. The bed felt bigger. I stretched across it, taking up space I'd unconsciously avoided for so long. The morning light came through the curtains, soft and gray, and I lay there listening to the quiet house settling around me. My phone had 32 new messages. I turned it off without reading any of them. In the bathroom, I caught my reflection in the mirror and stopped. Really looked. When had I started looking so tired? Not just physically, though there were shadows under my eyes and a tightness around my mouth that hadn't been there a few years ago, but something deeper. I looked worn down, faded, like a photograph left too long in the sun. I was 29, but I looked older. Not in a good way. In a way that spoke of too many nights waiting up, too many excuses accepted, too many times I'd swallowed my feelings to keep the peace. I turned on the shower and stood under the hot water until my skin turned pink. Then I got dressed in jeans and a bright red sweater, something I hadn't worn in ages because Julian had once mentioned he didn't like red. Funny how many little preferences of his I'd absorbed without noticing. Downstairs, I made coffee and toast and sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. I had 3 client deadlines this week, work I needed to focus on, but first I had to deal with the Julian situation. I opened my browser and searched for divorce attorneys. Robert Chin wasn't a real person. I'd made him up last night because I needed a name, needed Julian to think I was already 3 steps ahead. But now I actually needed a lawyer, and as I scrolled through websites full of professional headshots and bullet-pointed specialties, I felt overwhelmed by the reality of what I was doing. 8 years. You don't just erase 8 years. Except maybe you do when those 8 years slowly erased you instead. My doorbell rang at 9. I checked the camera and saw Renee again, this time holding a bag from the bakery downtown. I let her in. You turned off your phone, she said, not quite accusing but close. I needed quiet. Julian's been calling me every hour since 6 this morning. I'm sorry. She set the bakery bag on the counter and pulled out 2 croissants and 2 chocolate muffins. Don't be sorry. Be smart. Have you called a lawyer yet? I'm looking now. I know someone. She pulled out her phone and sent me a contact. Teresa Rodriguez. She handled my cousin's divorce last year. Tough fare, doesn't take any nonsense. Tell her I sent you. I saved the contact. Thank you. Now the hard part. We need to go through everything. Bank accounts, credit cards, assets, all of it. You need to know exactly what you're dealing with before Julian tries to hide anything. I hadn't thought that far ahead. You think he'd do that? Renee gave me a look. Naomi, he's been lying to you for months. Maybe longer. You can't afford to be naive about this. She was right. I knew she was right. But some part of me still wanted to believe Julian was a good person who'd made a mistake, not someone who would deliberately try to screw me over in a divorce. We spent the next 2 hours going through files. Bank statements, investment accounts, mortgage papers, insurance documents. Julian had always handled the finances because he made more money and because he said he was better at that stuff. I trusted him. Looking at the numbers now, I realized how stupid that had been. There were accounts I didn't know about. A savings account with $43,000 that had my name on it but that I'd never accessed. A credit card with an $11,000 balance, charges for restaurants I'd never been to, hotels in cities Julian had supposedly visited for work. He was taking her on trips, Renee said flatly, looking at the statement. My hands felt numb. I paid for half this house. Half of everything. While he was spending money on her. Which is why you need a good lawyer. Today. I called Teresa Rodriguez at 10:30. Her assistant put me through after I mentioned Renee's name. Tell me what's going on, Teresa said. Her voice was calm, professional, with just enough warmth to make me feel like she was actually listening. I told her everything. The text, the affair, the financial stuff we discovered this morning. She asked questions, took notes, and when I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Okay, she said finally. Here's what we're going to do. First, you're going to document everything. Every message, every receipt, every piece of evidence you have of this affair. Second, we're going to file for divorce immediately, and we're going to request a temporary restraining order preventing him from accessing joint accounts or disposing of assets. Third, you're going to change every password to every account you have access to. Can you do all that? Yes. Good. I have an opening tomorrow morning at 9. Bring everything you've found, everything you think might be relevant. And Naomi? Yes. You did the right thing. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. After I hung up, I felt better. More grounded. Like I had a plan instead of just chaos. Renee left at noon to go to work, but not before making me promise to eat something and to call her if Julian showed up. After she was gone, I sat in the quiet house and realized I needed to tell people. My parents. Julian's parents. Our friends. The thought exhausted me. I started with my mom. She answered on the second ring, and I could hear the television in the background, one of her cooking shows. Naomi, honey, how are you? Mom, Julian and I are getting divorced. Silence. Then the television going quiet. What happened? I gave her the short version. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she sighed. I can't say I'm surprised, she said. What do you mean? He stopped coming to family dinners. Stopped calling. The last few times we saw him, he barely spoke to anyone. Your father and I wondered if something was wrong, but we didn't want to pry. I felt something crack inside me. Why didn't you say anything? Would you have listened? Probably not. I'd been so busy making excuses for Julian, defending him, explaining away his absences and his distance. I wouldn't have heard anything my parents tried to tell me. Do you need anything? Mom asked. Should I come up there? No, I'm okay. Renee's been helping. That's good. She's a good friend. Better than that husband of yours ever was. We talked for a few more minutes and she made me promise to call if I needed anything. After we hung up, I felt lighter somehow. Like telling people made it real, made it something I was actually doing instead of just threatening. Julian's parents were harder. I liked them, or I had liked them, and I knew they'd take their son's side because that's what parents do. But I also felt like I owed them a conversation before they heard it from Julian. His mother answered. Naomi, sweetheart, how are you? I need to tell you something. I took a breath. Julian and I are separating. I've asked him to move out. Oh no. No. What happened? Can you fix it? He's been having an affair. Silence. Then, are you sure? Yes. Have you talked to him? Maybe it's a misunderstanding. This was the part I'd been dreading. It's not a misunderstanding, Barbara. He's been lying to me for months. I'm not interested in fixing it. But marriage is work. You can't just give up when things get hard. I felt my jaw tighten. I didn't give up. He did. When he decided someone else was more important than his wife. You're upset. That's understandable. But don't make any rash decisions. Think about this. I have thought about it. I'm done thinking about it. We went back and forth for another 5 minutes before I finally told her I had to go. She was crying by the end, telling me Julian loved me, that we could work through this, that divorce wasn't the answer. I hung up feeling drained and guilty, which I hated because I had nothing to feel guilty about. The rest of the afternoon I spent working on actual client projects, trying to focus on something productive. I had a logo design due Friday and a website mock-up due next Tuesday, and both clients had been waiting longer than they should have because I'd been too distracted by my failing marriage to give them my full attention. I worked until 6, then made myself dinner. Pasta with vegetables, nothing fancy, but I set the table and lit a candle because Renee had told me I needed to keep doing normal things, needed to remind myself that life continued. I was cleaning up when my phone rang. I turned it back on an hour ago, and I'd been ignoring the flood of messages from Julian. But this call was from his sister, Angela, and I actually liked Angela. I answered. Hey, Naomi. What the hell is going on? Julian called me crying, saying you locked him out of the house and won't talk to him. I sat down at the table. Did he tell you why? He said you had a fight. That you overreacted to something he said in a text. He's having an affair, Angela. Silence. Then, what? For months apparently. With a woman from his office. Are you sure? I was so tired of that question. Yes, I'm sure. There are hotel charges, restaurant receipts, text messages. I'm sure. Angela swore softly. That idiot. That absolute idiot. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow. Good. You should. God, Naomi, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Neither did I until recently. We talked for another 20 minutes. Unlike Julian's mother, Angela didn't try to convince me to give him another chance. She was angry at her brother, apologetic on behalf of the family, and genuinely concerned about me. If you need anything, she said before we hung up, call me. I mean it. Just because Julian's an idiot doesn't mean you lose the whole family. That meant more than I could express. After we hung up, I felt a little less alone. I spent the evening organizing documents for my meeting with Teresa tomorrow. Every receipt I could find, every bank statement, every piece of evidence that showed what Julian had been doing. By 10 o'clock, I had a folder 3 inches thick. Before bed, I made the mistake of scrolling through social media. Someone had posted photos from a dinner party 2 months ago, one Julian and I had attended. In the pictures, we looked happy. His arm around my waist, both of us smiling. I tried to remember that night, whether I'd actually been happy or just going through the motions. I couldn't remember. That was the worst part. I couldn't remember the last time I genuinely felt happy with Julian, the last time we'd laughed together, the last time he'd looked at me with actual affection instead of obligation. I closed the app and plugged in my phone. Tomorrow would be the first official step toward ending this marriage. Tonight was the last night I could pretend any part of me still wondered if I was making a mistake. I lay in bed in the dark and realized I didn't wonder. Not even a little bit. What I felt was relief, pure and simple. Relief that I didn't have to try anymore, didn't have to fix something that had been broken for longer than I wanted to admit. The woman in the mirror this morning had looked tired and worn down. Tomorrow maybe she'd start looking like herself again. I arrived at Teresa Rodriguez's office at 8:45, carrying my folder of evidence and a travel mug of coffee that had gone cold during the drive downtown. The office was in a newer building, all glass and steel, the kind of place that said success without being obnoxious about it. Teresa met me in the reception area herself. She was in her 40s, I guessed, with dark hair pulled into a neat bun and sharp eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. She shook my hand firmly. "Come on back," she said. "Can I get you water? Coffee?" Water would be good. Her office was clean and organized, with diplomas on the wall and a photo of 2 teenage girls on her desk. She gestured for me to sit and handed me a bottle of water before settling behind her desk with a legal pad. "Okay," she said. "Let's start with the basics. How long have you been married?" 6 years. Together for 8 total. Children? No. Shared property? The house. We bought it 4 years ago, both names on the mortgage and the deed. 2 cars, both paid off. Joint bank accounts, joint credit cards. I have my own business account for my design work. She wrote as I talked, occasionally asking clarifying questions. Then we went through the folder I'd brought, and her expression got progressively more serious as she reviewed the evidence. "This is good documentation," she said finally. "The hotel charges, the restaurant receipts, all with dates and locations. And you said the other woman contacted you?" She sent me a text saying she thought Julian and I were separated. I have screenshots. Perfect. In this state, adultery affects property division and potentially alimony. With this evidence, we're in a strong position. She looked up at me. "How are you doing? Emotionally, I mean." The question surprised me. "I'm okay. Better than I expected, actually." That's common. A lot of people feel relief once they make the decision. The hard part is usually sticking to it when the other party starts fighting back. You think Julian will fight? Most do. Especially when they realize they're going to face consequences. She pulled out some papers. "I'm going to file the petition today. We'll request exclusive use of the marital home for you, temporary support if needed, and a full accounting of all marital assets. Given the affair and the financial evidence, I think we can make a strong case. But Naomi, you need to be prepared for this to get difficult." "How difficult?" "He'll likely try to reconcile, make promises, maybe even threaten you. Some people get angry when they realize they can't control the narrative anymore. Do you feel safe with him? Physically?" "Yes. He's never been violent." "Good. But if that changes, you call the police immediately. Do you understand?" I nodded, though the idea of calling the police on Julian felt surreal. We spent another hour going over details, and by the time I left Teresa's office at 11, I felt both empowered and terrified. This was really happening. There was no taking it back now. I was halfway to my car when my phone rang. "Julian." I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "What?" "We need to talk." His voice was strained, rough, like he hadn't slept. "Please, Naomi. Just give me an hour. Let me explain." "There's nothing to explain." "Yes, there is. You don't understand what happened. It's not what you think. I stopped walking and leaned against my car. Then what is it, Julian? What possible explanation makes months of lying okay? Can we please do this in person? I'm at the house. You're at my house? Our house. I still live here too. I felt anger flash through me hot and clean. No, you don't. I told you not to come back. You can't just kick me out of my own house. Watch me. Leave Julian. Right now. I'm not leaving until we talk. I hung up and called Teresa. She answered on the second ring. He's at the house, I said. He won't leave. Did you tell him to leave? Yes. Okay. Here's what you do. Go there with someone, a friend or family member. Don't go alone. Tell him again to leave and record it on your phone. If he still won't, call the police for a civil standby. Don't engage beyond telling him to leave. Can you do that? Yes. I called Renee next. She was at work but said she could take a late lunch and meet me at the house in 20 minutes. While I waited in the parking garage, I tried to calm my breathing, tried to prepare myself for whatever Julian was going to say. The drive home took 15 minutes. Julian's car was in the driveway, which it had no right to be. Renee pulled up behind me just as I was getting out of my car. You good? She asked. No, but let's do this anyway. We walked to the front door together. I could see Julian through the window, pacing in the living room. I unlocked the door and went in, keeping Renee close behind me. Julian turned when he heard us. He looked terrible. His shirt was wrinkled, his eyes red-rimmed, his jaw rough with stubble. Naomi, thank God. We need to. He stopped when he saw Renee. What is she doing here? She's here because I want her here, I said. You need to leave. I'm not leaving until we talk. I pulled out my phone and started recording. I'm asking you to leave my home. You don't live here anymore. Our home. And I do live here. My name is on the deed. Julian, please. Just go. Not until you listen to me. He took a step forward and Renee moved between us. Back up, she said. Her voice was steady but hard. Julian looked at her with something close to hatred. This is between me and my wife. I'm not your wife anymore, I said. I told you that 2 days ago. I'm filing for divorce today. Something changed in his face. The desperation shifted into anger. You're what? I filed for divorce this morning. You'll be served with papers in a few days. You can't do that. We haven't even talked about this. There's nothing to talk about. You've been having an affair. It's over. It's not an affair. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything. Renee made a disgusted sound. 8 months doesn't sound like a mistake. Julian's eyes widened. How do you know it was 8 months? Hotel receipts, I said. Credit card statements. Text messages. Should I go on? He ran his hands through his hair, looking panicked now. Okay, yes, I messed up. But it's over. I ended it. We can fix this. No, we can't. Naomi, please. I love you. I made a mistake, but it's done. It's over. We can go to counseling, work through this. Please. Looking at him now, I tried to find some remnant of the man I'd fallen in love with 8 years ago. The one who'd made me laugh, who'd supported my decision to start my own business, who'd made me feel seen and valued. But that man was gone if he'd ever really existed. The person standing in front of me was a stranger who'd lied and cheated and only seemed sorry now that he was facing consequences. I want you to leave, I said quietly. Take whatever you need today and don't come back without calling first. This is my house too. Then we'll let the lawyers sort that out. But right now, today, I'm asking you to respect my space and leave. And if I don't? I looked at Renee. She pulled out her phone. Then we call the police for a civil standby and they'll escort you out. Your choice. Julian looked between us and I could see him calculating, trying to figure out if we were bluffing. We weren't. Fine, he said finally. But this isn't over, Naomi. We're married. You can't just throw that away because you're upset. I'm not upset, Julian. I'm done. There's a difference. He grabbed his laptop bag from the couch and his keys from the table. At the door, he turned back. You're making a mistake. You're going to regret this. The only thing I regret is not doing it sooner. He left, slamming the door behind him. I watched through the window as he got in his car and drove away too fast, tires squealing as he turned out of the neighborhood. I stopped the recording on my phone and sent it to Teresa. Renee put her arm around my shoulders. You okay? Yeah. Actually, yeah, I am. We went inside and I locked the door behind us. The house felt different now. Lighter somehow, like Julian had taken some oppressive weight with him when he left. What did he mean it's been 8 months? I asked. Renee pulled out her phone and showed me the credit card statement. First hotel charge was last July. Unless there's an earlier one you haven't found yet. 8 months. I'd been completely oblivious for 8 months while my husband built a separate life with someone else. The thought should have hurt more than it did. I need to change the locks again, I said. He still has a key. Already called the locksmith. He'll be here in an hour. Thank you. That's what friends are for. She looked at me carefully. You sure you're okay? That was intense. I'm sure. It's weird, but I feel better now. Like it's really real, you know? You can't pretend anymore. I can't pretend anymore. It's just done. My phone buzzed. A text from Julian. I'm sorry. I know you don't want to hear it, but I am. I love you. Please don't do this. I showed Renee. She rolled her eyes. Block him. Not yet. Teresa said to document everything. Then don't respond. I didn't. Over the next hour, as we waited for the locksmith, Julian sent 14 more texts. They ranged from apologetic to angry to desperate, a cycle that repeated itself 3 times. I didn't answer any of them. The locksmith arrived and changed all the locks, front door, back door, garage. I paid him in cash and felt another small piece of control return to me. After he left, Renee had to go back to work. She hugged me at the door. Call me if you need anything, she said. And Naomi? You did good today. You stood your ground. I'm proud of you. After she left, I stood in my newly secure house and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Genuine, actual peace. My phone rang. Not Julian this time, but a number I didn't recognize. I answered cautiously. Naomi? This is Simone. From Julian's office. I should have hung up. Teresa would probably tell me to hang up. But curiosity got the better of me. What do you want? I wanted to apologize. I really didn't know you two were still together. Julian told me you'd been separated for months. And you believed him? Silence. Then, I wanted to believe him. I know that's not an excuse, but I did. Why are you calling me? Because I feel terrible. And because you should know he lied to me too. About a lot of things. About you, about his plans, about our future. I'm not trying to make excuses, but I thought you should know you're not the only one he manipulated. I sat down on the couch. How long? 8 months. He pursued me, told me his marriage was over and everything but paperwork, that you two were just roommates at that point. I'm not saying I should have believed him without checking, but I did. Did you love him? I thought I did. Now I don't know. How do you love someone who lies that easily? You don't, I said. You love the version of them they pretended to be. I'm sorry, she said again. For all of it. I know that doesn't change anything, but I am. Okay. If there's anything I can do. There's not. But thanks for calling, I guess. After I hung up, I sat in the quiet house and tried to figure out how I felt about that conversation. Angry? Sad? Vindicated? None of those seemed quite right. What I felt mainly was tired. Tired of Julian's lies, tired of the drama, tired of wasting energy on a marriage that had been dead for longer than I wanted to admit. I made myself dinner and ate it while watching a documentary about art forgers. Normal, boring, peaceful. Exactly what I needed. At 9, Teresa called with an update. Papers are filed. He'll be served tomorrow morning at his office. Are you prepared for his reaction? As prepared as I can be. Good. Remember, don't engage. Document everything but don't respond. Let me handle the legal stuff. After we hung up, I took a long bath and went to bed early. Tomorrow Julian would get served with divorce papers at work, and the next phase would begin. But tonight I was just going to sleep in my house, in my bed, in my life that was slowly becoming mine again. The last thing I did before turning off the light was block Julian's number. I'd kept it active for documentation purposes, but I didn't need to see any more of his messages. Whatever he had to say from now on, he could say it to Teresa. I fell asleep quickly and didn't wake up once during the night. The process server caught Julian at his office at 10:30 in the morning. I know because Teresa called to confirm at 10:45, and Julian started calling Renee at 10:50. She told him she blocked his number too, but I guess he didn't believe her until he tried. I spent the morning working on a logo design for a new coffee shop downtown. The owner wanted something modern but warm, professional but approachable. I sketched concepts and lost myself in the work, grateful for something concrete to focus on. My phone rang at noon. A number I didn't recognize, but with Julian's area code. I let it go to voicemail. 3 minutes later, another call from a different unknown number. Voicemail again. By 2 o'clock, he tried 6 different numbers, none of which I answered. The voicemails ranged from desperate to furious. In one, he begged me to reconsider, said we could fix this, said he'd do anything. In another, he told me I was being unreasonable, that I was throwing away 6 years over nothing. In the third, he called me selfish and said I'd regret this. The emotional whiplash would have been almost funny if it wasn't so pathetic. I forwarded them all to Teresa. At 3, my doorbell rang. The security camera showed a woman I'd never seen before, maybe mid-30s, professional looking in dark jeans and a green blazer. I answered through the intercom. Can I help you? Naomi? I'm Rebecca, Julian's co-worker. Can we talk? I opened the door but left the screen door locked. About what? About Julian and Simone. About what's been going on. I already know what's been going on. I know, but there's more. Can I please come in? Just for a few minutes. Against my better judgment, I let her in. We sat in the living room and I waited for her to explain why she was here. I've worked with Julian for 3 years, Rebecca said. And I've watched him lie to everyone in the office about his personal life. About you, about Simone, about everything. I felt like someone needed to tell you the truth. What truth? It wasn't just Simone. There was another woman before her about 1.5 years ago. I don't know her name, but I saw them together at a conference in Boston. And there have been others, I think. Shorter things maybe. Julian's good at compartmentalizing his life. I felt cold. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know. And because Simone's a good person who got caught up in his lies. She really didn't know he was still married. He's very convincing. I'm not going to reconcile with him if that's what you're worried about. Good. You shouldn't. He'll never change. She hesitated. There's something else. Julian's been taking credit for other people's work at the office. Mine included. He's up for a promotion next month, and it's based partly on projects I did most of the work on. I'm reporting it to HR, but I thought you should know. The man you married? He's not who he pretends to be in any part of his life. After Rebecca left, I sat on the couch and tried to process what she told me. Multiple affairs. Lying at work. Taking credit for other people's accomplishments. Each new piece of information painted a picture of someone I'd never really known at all. My phone buzzed. A text from Angela, Julian's sister. Mom just called me crying. She says you're destroying the family. I told her that's ridiculous, but I wanted to give you a heads up that she might try to contact you. I replied, thanks for the warning. Sure enough, 20 minutes later my phone rang. Barbara, Julian's mother. I almost didn't answer, but I figured it was better to deal with it now than have her show up at my house. Naomi, please tell me this is all a misunderstanding. It's not. Julian cheated on me. Multiple times apparently. I'm divorcing him. But the divorce papers? Served at his office? You humiliated him in front of his colleagues. He humiliated himself. I just filed paperwork. You're being vindictive. I felt my patience snap. Barbara, your son had affairs with multiple women while married to me. He lied for over 1 year. He spent marital money on hotels and dinners for his girlfriends. I'm not being vindictive. I'm protecting myself. He made mistakes. That doesn't mean you should give up. Yes, it does. That's exactly what it means. I'm done being understanding, done making excuses, done pretending everything's fine when it's not. Your son destroyed this marriage, not me. You'll never find anyone better. You're not getting any younger. The words hit like a slap. I took a breath. If being alone is better than being with Julian, then I'll be alone. And I'll be happy. Happier than I've been in years. I hung up before she could respond and immediately blocked her number. I didn't need that kind of toxicity in my life, family or not. My phone rang again immediately. This time it was my mom. Barbara just called me, she said. She's very upset. Good. Naomi. Mom, please don't. I can't handle any more people telling me I should stay with a man who cheated on me repeatedly. I just can't. I'm not going to tell you that. I called to ask if you're okay and if you need anything. The kindness in her voice made my throat tight. I'm okay. Really. It's been hard, but I'm okay. Your father and I support you. Whatever you need, we're here. We talked for a while longer and I filled her in on everything that had happened since we last spoke. She listened without judgment, asked questions without being invasive, and by the time we hung up, I felt better. The rest of the afternoon I spent working. I finished the coffee shop logo and sent it to the client, started mock-ups for a website redesign, answered emails I'd been neglecting. Normal work, the kind that paid bills and kept me busy. At 6, Renee showed up with Chinese food and a bottle of wine. I figured you might need company, she said. You figured right. We ate on the couch and watched a comedy special, something light and funny that didn't require any emotional investment. It felt good to laugh, to have a normal evening with a friend, to remember that my entire life didn't have to revolve around the drama of my divorce. "How are you really doing?" Renee asked during a commercial break. "Honestly, better than I expected. Everyone keeps asking if I'm okay, if I'm sad, if I'm falling apart. And I'm not. I'm relieved. That's allowed, you know. You don't have to be devastated just because your marriage ended." "I know. But part of me wonders if there's something wrong with me. Shouldn't I be sadder?" "You've been sad for months. Maybe years. You've been mourning this marriage for a long time. Now you're just done mourning." She was right. I'd been sad every time Julian came home late. Every time he brushed off my attempts at conversation. Every time I felt invisible in my own home. The grief had been gradual, accumulating over months until I was just numb to it. My phone buzzed. A text from Teresa. "Julian's lawyer contacted me. They want to set up mediation. Are you interested?" I showed Renee. "What do you think? What do you want?" "I want this over. But I also don't want to give him anything he doesn't deserve." "Then tell Teresa you'll mediate, but you're not negotiating on the important stuff." He cheated. He lied. He doesn't get to walk away like this was an amicable split. I replied to Teresa, "I'll mediate, but I'm not compromising on asset division or the house. Make that clear." She responded immediately, "Understood. I'll set it up for next week." The next few days settled into a strange new rhythm. I worked during the day, talked to Teresa about legal strategy in the afternoons, and tried to rebuild the social life I'd let atrophy during my marriage. I had dinner with old friends I hadn't seen in months. I went to a pottery class I'd been wanting to try. I took myself to the movies and didn't feel weird about sitting alone in the dark theater. Julian kept trying to contact me through other people. His friends would call, saying he just wanted to talk, that he missed me. His co-workers would reach out on social media with messages about how upset he was. Even his father called once, though he at least had the decency to ask how I was doing before launching into a speech about forgiveness and second chances. I blocked, ignored, or politely declined all of them. Whatever Julian needed to say, he could say it through his lawyer. 4 days after Julian got served, I was working in my home office when I heard the garage door open. My heart jumped into my throat. I grabbed my phone and pulled up the security app, but I could already hear footsteps in the house. Julian walked into my office like he still lived there. "We need to talk." "Get out. This is still my house." "No, it's not. The restraining order says you're not allowed here." "There's no restraining order." "There will be. Get out now or I'm calling the police." "For what?" "I'm not threatening you. You're trespassing." He laughed, but it sounded wrong. Desperate. "Trespassing in my own home. Naomi, please. Just listen to me for 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." I picked up my phone and dialed. "I'm calling the police. You have 30 seconds to leave." Something shifted in his face. The desperation turned to anger. "You know what? Fine. Keep the house. Keep everything. See if I care. You're not worth this much trouble. Then leave." He did, but not before sweeping my coffee mug off the desk, sending it crashing to the floor. Coffee splattered across my sketches and papers, and I watched him go without saying another word. After his car pulled out of the driveway, I called Teresa. "He just broke into my house," I said. "Well, not broken exactly. He has keys. But he came in without permission and wouldn't leave until I threatened to call the police." "Did you call them?" "No. He left before I had to." "You should have called them anyway. We need this documented. Can you file a police report now? Tell them what happened, that he entered without permission and refused to leave when asked." I filed the report online and sent a copy to Teresa. 2 hours later, she called back. "Emergency restraining order granted. He can't come within 500 feet of you or the house. He'll be served with it tomorrow." "Will he actually stay away?" "Most people do. The consequences get serious if they don't. But Naomi, you need to be careful. He's escalating. Keep your doors locked, keep your phone charged, and if he shows up again, call the police immediately. Don't try to handle it yourself." That night, I checked every lock 3 times before going to bed. I left lights on and kept my phone on the nightstand. I didn't sleep well, kept waking up at every small sound, convinced Julian was coming back. But he didn't come back. The restraining order held. A week after the papers were served, I woke up and realized I'd slept through the night for the first time since Julian had broken into the house. I made coffee and sat on my back patio, watching the sunrise and feeling something close to contentment. My phone buzzed. A text from Teresa. Mediation scheduled for Thursday at 2 p.m. My office. Don't bring Julian anything, don't agree to anything on the spot. We negotiate through me, understand? I confirmed and spent the next few days preparing mentally for seeing Julian again. The mediation would be the first time we'd been in the same room since he'd broken in, and I had no idea what to expect. Thursday arrived too quickly. I dressed carefully in jeans and a blue blouse, professional but not trying too hard. Renee offered to come with me, but Teresa said it was better if I came alone. Just me, her, Julian, and his lawyer. Teresa's office was familiar now. She met me in the conference room and went over strategy one more time before Julian arrived. Remember, you don't have to agree to anything. We're here to hear what they want, not to make decisions. Stay calm, don't engage emotionally, and let me do the talking. Julian arrived 10 minutes late with his lawyer, a man in his 50s with silver hair and an expensive suit. Julian looked terrible. He'd lost weight and there were deep circles under his eyes. Part of me felt bad for him. A larger part didn't. We sat on opposite sides of the conference table. The mediator, a neutral third party, explained the process. Then Julian's lawyer started talking. My client is willing to offer a generous settlement, he said. He'll take 50% of the house equity, half the savings, and his car. Mrs. Williams keeps her business and her car. All debt is split 50-50. In exchange, we ask for minimal spousal support and a quick resolution. Teresa didn't even blink. That's not generous, that's basic divorce math. And given your client's infidelity and financial deception, we're asking for more. The negotiations went on for 2 hours. Back and forth about money, property, debt. I sat quietly and let Teresa handle it, speaking only when the mediator asked me direct questions. Finally, Julian himself spoke up. Can we take a break? I'd like to talk to Naomi alone. No, Teresa said before I could respond. Please. Just 5 minutes. I looked at Teresa. She shook her head slightly, but I said, 5 minutes. In the hallway. We stepped outside the conference room, leaving the lawyers inside. Julian and I stood in the hallway, and for a long moment, neither of us spoke. I miss you, he said finally. Don't. I know I messed up. I know I can't fix it. But I want you to know I'm sorry. Really, truly sorry. Okay. Is that it? Just okay? What do you want me to say, Julian? That I forgive you? I don't. That I understand? I don't. You destroyed our marriage and now we're here dealing with the consequences. That's all this is. Consequences. I loved you. I still love you. No, you don't. You love the idea of me, the convenience of having a wife at home while you did whatever you wanted. But you never actually loved me. If you had, you wouldn't have done what you did. He reached for my hand and I stepped back. Don't touch me. Naomi. Our 5 minutes are up. I walked back into the conference room without waiting for his response. Teresa looked at me, checking if I was okay. I nodded and we continued the mediation. By the end of the session, we'd reached a tentative agreement. I'd keep the house and my business. Julian would take his car and half the savings. We'd split the credit card debt, though Teresa had managed to get him responsible for the charges related to his affairs. No spousal support on either side. Clean break. We'll draw up the papers and send them over for review, Teresa said. If everything checks out, we can finalize in about 3 weeks. 3 weeks. In 3 weeks, I'd be divorced, officially single, legally free from Julian Williams. In the parking lot as I was unlocking my car, Julian caught up with me. Naomi, wait. I turned. What? Are you happy? Is this what you wanted? I thought about it, really thought about it. Yes, I'm happy. Or I will be once this is over. Happier than I ever was with you. He flinched like I'd hit him. That's not fair. Life isn't fair, Julian. You taught me that. I got in my car and drove away, leaving him standing alone in the parking lot. In my rearview mirror, I saw him watching me go, and I felt nothing but relief that soon he'd be nothing more than a memory. 3 months had passed since I'd told Julian not to come home. 93 days to be exact, though I'd stopped counting after the first month. The divorce would be final in 2 weeks, pending some last-minute paperwork review. I was sitting in my home office reviewing a website design for a local restaurant when Renee texted, "Lunch?" My treat. I'd been working since 6 that morning, and I realized I hadn't eaten breakfast. Give me 20 minutes. We met at a new place downtown, a sandwich shop that had opened last month. The owner had seen my work on Instagram and reached out about designing her logo. It felt good to see my designs out in the world, to have tangible proof that my business was growing. You look good, Renee said as we settled into a booth by the window. Different somehow. Different how? Like yourself. Like the Naomi I knew in college before you met Julian. Relaxed. Happy. I realized she was right. I did feel relaxed. The constant tension I'd carried for years, the knot in my stomach whenever I heard Julian's car in the driveway, the anxiety about saying the wrong thing or not being enough, all of that was gone. I got 3 new clients this week, I told her. 2 from referrals, 1 from my website. If this keeps up, I might need to hire an assistant by summer. That's incredible. I know. I keep waiting for something to go wrong, but things just keep getting better. We ordered, and while we waited for our food, I filled her in on the latest divorce details. Julian had signed the final papers without additional drama. His lawyer had advised him to just take the deal and move on, apparently. Have you heard from him at all? Renee asked. Not directly. Angela tells me he's dating someone new already. One of the women from his office, not Simone. Of course he is. I don't care. That's the weird part. I thought I'd care, but I really don't. Our food arrived, and we ate while Renee told me about her own dating disasters. She'd been on 3 apps for the past month and had nothing but horror stories to show for it. Maybe I should just be single, she said. You make it look so appealing. It is appealing. No one's disappointed when I work late. No one's criticizing how I spend my money or my time. I can eat cereal for dinner if I want. It's wonderful. You're really not lonely? I thought about it. Sometimes. But it's a different kind of lonely than being married to Julian was. At least now when I'm alone, I'm actually alone. Not sitting next to someone who makes me feel invisible. After lunch, I stopped by the art supply store. I'd started painting again, something I'd loved in college but had somehow stopped doing after I got married. Julian had never understood why I'd want to waste time on hobbies that didn't make money. I bought new brushes, a set of acrylics, and 3 blank canvases. Back home, I set up a space in the spare bedroom that had been Julian's home office. I'd cleared out his stuff weeks ago, donated his desk and filing cabinets, and turned the room into a studio. The light was perfect in the afternoons, streaming through the west-facing window and turning everything golden. I set up my easel and stared at the blank canvas, trying to decide what to paint. My phone rang. Teresa Rodriguez. Good news, she said. The judge signed off on everything. Your divorce is final as of today. I sat down on the floor, canvas forgotten. Today? I thought we had 2 more weeks. The court had an opening, and since everything was already agreed upon, they pushed it through. Congratulations. You're officially divorced. Congratulations seems like a weird thing to say. Maybe. But you should celebrate. You got through it. Clean break, fair division, and you kept your dignity throughout. A lot of people don't manage that. After we hung up, I sat in my studio and tried to figure out how I felt. Relieved mostly. Free. A little sad, but not the kind of sad I'd expected. More like the melancholy of closing a book you didn't particularly enjoy but that had taken a long time to read. I called my mom and told her. How are you feeling, honey? Good. Really good, actually. Want me to come up this weekend? We could celebrate properly. I'd like that. I called Renee next, and she immediately insisted on taking me out for drinks after work. You're newly single. We're celebrating. I've been single for 3 months. But now it's official. There's a difference. That evening, we went to a bar downtown that had live music on Fridays. We ordered expensive cocktails and sat at the bar watching the band set up. To new beginnings, Renee said, raising her glass. To new beginnings. The band started playing and we settled in to listen. The music was good, bluesy and soulful, the kind that made you want to close your eyes and just feel it. Between sets, Renee went to the bathroom, and a man about my age approached the bar next to me. Good band, he said. Yeah, they are. I'm Marcus. He held out his hand, then seemed to realize what he'd said. Wait, that's weird. Sorry. I'm not trying to hit on you. Well, I am, but not in a creepy way. I laughed despite myself. I'm Naomi. Nice to meet you, Naomi. Can I buy you a drink? I have one, but thank you. Fair enough. Mind if I wait here for my friends? All the tables are full. Go ahead. We talked while he waited, easy conversation about the band, about the bar, about nothing important. He was funny and self-deprecating, and I found myself enjoying talking to him. When his friends arrived, he gave me his card. I run a small marketing firm downtown. If you ever need help promoting your business, give me a call. Or if you just want to grab coffee sometime. No pressure either way. After he left, Renee returned and immediately demanded details. I showed her the card. Are you going to call him? She asked. Maybe. I don't know. Is it too soon? Naomi, you've been separated for 3 months and divorced for about 3 hours. There's no such thing as too soon. If you want to call him, call him. If you don't, don't. But don't not call him because you think you should still be mourning Julian. That man doesn't deserve any more of your time. She was right. Julian had already taken 6 years. He didn't get to take any more. Over the next week, I settled into my new reality. Officially divorced, officially single, officially starting over. I had coffee with an old friend from college who'd moved back to town. I went to a gallery opening alone and didn't feel weird about it. I painted for hours without anyone telling me I should be doing something more productive. My business continued to grow. The restaurant website went live, and the owner was so happy she referred me to 3 other businesses. I raised my rates, something I'd been too scared to do before, and people paid them without complaint. I was working on a logo design for a nonprofit when my doorbell rang. The security camera showed a delivery person with a large package. I signed for it and brought it inside. The return address was Julian's new apartment. Inside was a box of things he'd forgotten, small personal items I hadn't realized were still in the house. A watch I'd given him for our 2nd anniversary. Some books. A framed photo of us from our wedding day. I looked at that photo for a long time. We looked happy, genuinely happy. Young and hopeful and completely unaware of how things would turn out. I tried to find some sadness for those people, for what we'd lost, but I couldn't. Those people were strangers to me now. I donated the books to the library and dropped the watch at a jewelry store that bought gold. The photo went in the recycling. If Julian wanted his stuff, he should have taken it when he left. That night, I called the number on Marcus's card. He answered on the 2nd ring. Naomi. I was hoping you'd call. Want to get coffee sometime? How about tomorrow? There's a place near my office that does a great pour-over. Tomorrow works. I hung up feeling nervous and excited and totally unsure if I was ready for this. But maybe that was the point. Maybe you're never really ready, you just do it anyway and figure it out as you go. The next afternoon, I met Marcus at the coffee shop. It was one of those places with exposed brick and local art on the walls, the kind that would have made Julian complain about overpriced hipster culture. I loved it immediately. We talked for 2 hours. About his business, about mine, about our families and our friends and our plans for the future. He'd been divorced for a year, had no kids, liked hiking and cooking and old movies. He was easy to talk to, and he actually listened when I spoke, asked follow-up questions, seemed genuinely interested in my answers. I should probably tell you, I said at one point, my divorce was literally finalized last week. So if you're looking for something serious, I might not be your person right now. Last week? Well, that's fresh. Yeah. Well, for what it's worth, I'm not looking for anything serious either. I'm still figuring out who I am post-divorce. But I like you and I'd like to see you again if you're interested. No expectations beyond that. I'd like that too. We exchanged numbers and made plans to have dinner the following weekend. Nothing fancy, just a casual restaurant and conversation. No pressure. Walking to my car afterward, I felt lighter somehow. I wasn't ready for a relationship, might not be ready for a long time, but it felt good to remember I could connect with someone new, could have a conversation that didn't feel like work. I drove home through the early evening light, past the lake where Julian and I used to walk on weekends when we first got married, past the grocery store where we'd done our shopping, past all the landmarks of our life together. None of it hurt to see anymore. It was just scenery, background to the life I was building now. At home, I poured a glass of wine and stood in my studio, looking at the half-finished painting I'd started earlier in the week. It was abstract, all blues and greens and soft purples, colors that felt like healing to me. I picked up my brush and kept working as the sun set outside my window. This was my life now. My house, my business, my time, my choices. No one to answer to, no one to disappoint, no one making me feel small. 6 months ago, I'd been married and miserable, waiting for a husband who never really came home. Now I was divorced and content, building a life that actually felt like mine. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was turning out to be better than anything I could have imagined. I heard about Julian's troubles through Angela. She called one evening in late June, about 4 months after the divorce was finalized. I don't know if you want to hear this, she said, but Julian's having a rough time. I was on my back patio, working on a client proposal while the evening cooled around me. I'm listening. Simone broke up with him about a month ago. Apparently, she found out he'd been lying about being separated when they first got together. She felt manipulated, she was. Then the woman he started dating after you? She dumped him too when she found out how quickly he'd moved on from his marriage. Okay. And his job? Rebecca, his co-worker? She reported him to HR for taking credit for her work. They investigated, found out he'd been doing it to multiple people, and he got demoted. Lost about 30% of his salary. I felt a flicker of something. Not quite satisfaction, but something close to it. That's a lot. He's a mess, Naomi. I saw him last week and he looks terrible. Lost more weight, drinking too much, barely taking care of himself. Mom's worried he's depressed. That's not my problem anymore, Angela. I know. And I'm not asking you to do anything about it. I just thought you should know in case he tries to reach out. After we hung up, I sat in the growing darkness and tried to figure out how I felt about Julian's downward spiral. Part of me, the part that had loved him once, felt bad. But a larger part just felt neutral, like hearing about a stranger's problems, sad but distant. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Dinner tomorrow? I found a new place I think you'd like. We'd been seeing each other casually for about 2 months now. Nothing serious, just dinners and movies and easy companionship. He never pushed for more, never made me feel like I owed him anything, and I appreciated that more than I could express. I replied, sounds good. 7? Perfect. I'll pick you up. The next evening, Marcus arrived right on time in jeans and a dark green shirt that made his eyes look even browner than usual. He was handsome in an understated way, not flashy like Julian had been, but warm and genuine. Dinner was at a small Italian place he'd discovered, family-owned, with checkered tablecloths and candles and wine bottles. We ordered pasta and split a bottle of red wine, and he told me about a difficult client he'd been dealing with. Sometimes I wonder why I started my own business, he said, twirling pasta on his fork. Then I remember working for other people was worse. I know that feeling. My clients can be demanding, but at least I'm demanding things of myself. We talked about work and life and everything in between. He told me about his ex-wife, how they'd grown apart over years, how the divorce had been sad but necessary. I told him more about Julian, about the affairs and the lies, about how relieved I'd been when it was finally over. Do you miss being married? He asked. No. I miss the idea of it sometimes, the security of having a partner. But I don't miss my actual marriage. That was more lonely than being alone. I get that. After dinner, we walked through the downtown area, past boutiques and galleries and restaurants filled with people enjoying their Friday night. The air was warm but not oppressive, perfect summer evening weather. Can I ask you something? Marcus said as we paused in front of a bookstore window. Sure. Where do you see this going? Because I really like spending time with you, but I also don't want to push for something you're not ready for. I appreciated his directness. I like spending time with you too. But honestly, I don't know where I see it going. I'm still figuring out who I am outside of being Julian's wife. Does that make sense? Complete sense. And for what it's worth, I'm still figuring out who I am outside of being someone's husband too. So maybe we just keep doing this? Seeing each other, enjoying each other's company, no pressure about the future? I'd like that. He smiled and took my hand as we continued walking. It felt nice, comfortable, like something I could get used to but wasn't required to. The following week brought a surge of new business. A local tech startup wanted a complete rebrand, logo to website to marketing materials. It was the biggest project I'd taken on, and the budget reflected that. I'd be able to hire that assistant I'd been thinking about, maybe even upgrade my equipment. I was researching color palettes when my phone rang. An unknown number with a local area code. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? Naomi? It's Julian. I should have hung up. Instead, I said, what do you want? I need to talk to you. Please. Just for a few minutes. We don't have anything to talk about. I'm sorry. For everything. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need you to know I'm sorry. Okay. You said it. We're done now. Wait. Please. I'm not doing well, Naomi. I can't sleep, can't eat. Everything's falling apart. My job, my relationships, everything. That's not my problem. I know it's not. But you knew me better than anyone. You were my best friend and I destroyed that. I destroyed us. And I needed to hear your voice. I felt anger rise in my chest, hot and sharp. You needed to hear my voice? After months of lying to me, cheating on me, treating me like I didn't matter, now you need me? No, you don't get to do that. You don't get to fall apart and expect me to pick up the pieces. I'm not asking you to fix anything. Julian, I hope you get help. I hope you figure out whatever's wrong with you. But I can't be part of that process. We're divorced. We're done. Don't call me again. I hung up and blocked the number. My hands were shaking, but I felt strong, not weak. Strong for drawing that boundary, for not falling back into the old pattern of taking care of him at my own expense. Renee called an hour later. Julian just called me asking for your new number. I told him absolutely not. Did he reach you? Yeah. I blocked him. Good. What did he want? To apologize, I think. To tell me his life is falling apart. To get me to feel sorry for him. And do you? I thought about it. A little. But not enough to let him back into my life in any way. He made his choices. Now he gets to live with them. I'm proud of you. For what? For not saving him. The old you would have tried. She was right. The old me would have wanted to help, would have felt responsible for his pain somehow. The new me knew better. Julian's problems were his own, just like my healing was my own. Over the next month, Julian tried to contact me 3 more times through various means. Once through a mutual friend, once through his mother, and once by showing up at a coffee shop he knew I frequented. Each time I maintained my boundary. We had nothing to discuss. Through Angela, I heard that he'd started therapy and stopped drinking. That he'd apologized to the people at work he'd wronged. That he was trying to put his life back together. I was glad for him in a distant sort of way, but it didn't change anything between us. That door was closed and locked, and I had no intention of opening it again. My business, meanwhile, continued to flourish. The tech startup project was going well, and they'd already referred me to 2 other companies. I hired an assistant, a recent college graduate named Brittany who was smart and eager and took half the administrative burden off my shoulders. I'd also started teaching an online class on graphic design fundamentals. It met twice a week via video call, and I had 12 students from all over the country. Teaching reminded me how much I loved design, how much knowledge I'd accumulated over the years without even realizing it. Marcus and I were still seeing each other, though we'd settled into a comfortable friends with benefits situation that worked for both of us. No expectations, no pressure, just companionship when we both wanted it. One evening in late July, I was working in my studio when Renee called. I have news, she said. I'm moving to Portland. My company offered me a promotion and I'm taking it. My stomach dropped. Portland? Oregon, Portland. Yeah. I know it's far, but it's an incredible opportunity. Senior director level, big salary bump, all of it. When? I start in October. I'm giving notice next week. We talked for over an hour, me trying not to be selfish, her excited about the new opportunity but sad about leaving. Renee had been my rock through the divorce and after. The thought of her being 3,000 miles away felt overwhelming. You'll visit, she said. And I'll come back for holidays. It's not goodbye, just see you later. I know. I'm happy for you. Really I am. It's just going to be weird without you here. You'll be fine. Look how far you've come. You don't need me hovering anymore. She was right, but it still hurt. Change was hard, even good change, even necessary change. After we hung up, I stood at my window and looked out at the neighborhood. 6 months ago, my whole life had imploded. Now I was building something new, something better, but still fragile enough that losing my best friend felt like it could knock me off balance. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. You okay? You seem quiet tonight. I'd forgotten we had plans to video chat. I called him instead. Renee's moving to Portland, I said when he answered. Wow, that's big. How are you feeling about it? Sad. Happy for her. Scared of being here without her. You're going to be okay, you know. You're stronger than you think. We talked for a while and he made me laugh despite my mood. After we hung up, I realized I had built a life here. A business, friends beyond just Renee, routines and rhythms that were mine. Renee leaving would be hard, but it wouldn't break me. I went back to my studio and looked at the canvas I'd been working on. It was almost finished, layers of color building into something coherent and whole. A metaphor so obvious it was almost cheesy, but true nonetheless. 6 months ago, I'd been broken pieces. Now I was reassembling into something new. It wasn't the same as what I'd been before Julian, but maybe it was better. Stronger. More authentically me. And if Julian's life was falling apart while mine was coming together, well, that was just how consequences worked. He'd spent years tearing me down. Now he got to see what I looked like when I built myself back up. August arrived with oppressive heat and a sense of possibility I hadn't felt in years. The tech startup project had wrapped up successfully, and my bank account reflected it. For the first time since starting my business, I had actual savings, a cushion that made me feel secure rather than constantly anxious about money. I was reviewing potential projects when an idea struck me. I'd been wanting to take a real vacation, something more than a long weekend, somewhere I'd never been. I pulled up a travel website and started browsing. Savannah, Georgia caught my eye. I'd always been drawn to the city's architecture and history, the Spanish moss and cobblestone streets. Julian had never wanted to go, said it was too hot in summer and too touristy year-round. But Julian's opinion didn't matter anymore. I booked a week-long trip for mid-September. A boutique hotel in the historic district, walking distance to everything. Solo travel felt both terrifying and thrilling, like jumping off a cliff and trusting I'd land safely. Renee was excited when I told her. Finally. You need this. When was the last time you took a real vacation? I thought back. Our honeymoon, I guess. 7 years ago. 7 years? Naomi, that's criminal. She was right. Julian and I had talked about traveling, but it never happened. Too busy with work, too expensive, too difficult to coordinate schedules. Looking back, I realized those were just excuses. Julian hadn't wanted to travel with me, hadn't wanted to spend that kind of concentrated time together. The weeks leading up to my trip were busy. I finished 3 smaller projects, set up Brittany to handle client communication while I was gone, and prepared everything so I could actually unplug. The night before I left, Marcus took me to dinner. I'm jealous, he said over dessert. I haven't been to Savannah in years. You should go sometime. It's supposed to be beautiful. Maybe. Though probably not alone. I'm not as brave as you. It's not brave. It's just necessary. He walked me to my car after dinner, and we stood in the parking lot under the streetlights. Have an amazing trip, he said. Take lots of pictures. Eat good food. Don't think about work or your ex or anything stressful. I'll try. He kissed me soft and sweet, and I drove home feeling lighter than I had in weeks. The flight to Savannah the next morning was uneventful. I read a novel, drank overpriced airport coffee, and watched the landscape change below as we flew south and east. Landing in the afternoon humidity felt like walking into a sauna, but in a good way, oppressive but alive. My hotel was perfect. Small and charming, with a courtyard garden and rooms that actually looked like the photos online. I unpacked, changed into a sundress and sandals, and went out to explore. Savannah was everything I'd hoped. Squares with fountains, historic homes with intricate ironwork, restaurants and shops and galleries everywhere. I wandered without a map, getting deliberately lost and finding my way back, feeling a freedom I'd forgotten existed. I had dinner at a restaurant on the river, sitting outside as the sun set and the water turned golden. The food was incredible, low-country cooking that tasted like summer, and I ate slowly, savoring every bite, not rushing for anyone. A woman at the next table, maybe in her 60s with silver hair and bright blue eyes, smiled at me. First time in Savannah? Yes. How can you tell? You have that look. Like everything's new and exciting. I love seeing it. Do you live here? 40 years now. Moved here after my divorce, actually. Best decision I ever made. We talked for over an hour, the stranger and I, about life and change and starting over. Her name was Patricia, and she'd left a bad marriage at 42, moved to Savannah with nothing but 2 suitcases and determination, and built a life she loved. She owned an art gallery now, traveled when she wanted, answered to no one. The thing about starting over, she said as we finished our wine, is that you get to decide who you want to be. You're not bound by who you were or who other people expected you to be. You just get to be you. Those words stayed with me as I walked back to my hotel that night. Who did I want to be? I'd spent so many years being Julian's wife, adapting to his needs and preferences, that I'd lost track of my own identity somewhere along the way. The next few days I spent exploring. Art galleries, museums, historic homes, bookstores, coffee shops. I ate at local restaurants, tried food I'd never heard of, struck up conversations with strangers. I took photographs of everything, not for social media but just for me to remember this time. On the 3rd day, I found a small art supply store tucked away on a side street. Inside, an older man was restoring an antique frame. We started talking, and before I knew it, 2 hours had passed. He showed me his workshop, explained his techniques, gave me recommendations for museums and galleries I shouldn't miss. You have an artist's eye, he said, looking at some of the photos I'd taken on my phone. You see the world in an interesting way. That night, I sat in my hotel room and started a journal. I'd never been much for journaling, but something about this trip made me want to record my thoughts, to capture not just what I saw but how I felt. I wrote about the freedom of being alone without being lonely, about the joy of making decisions based only on what I wanted, about how I'd spent years diminishing myself to fit into a marriage that never really fit me, about how I was slowly, finally, figuring out who I was outside of being someone's wife. The next morning, I signed up for a cooking class. We made traditional low-country dishes, a small group of tourists and locals learning together. My shrimp and grits turned out surprisingly well, and the instructor complimented my knife skills. You've done this before, she said. I used to cook a lot. Then I kinda stopped. Well, you're good at it. You should start again. Another thing Julian had slowly discouraged. He'd been picky about food, critical of my cooking, and eventually I just stopped trying. Easier to make simple meals or order takeout than face his complaints. In the afternoon, I visited the Telfair museums. The art was stunning, ranging from classical to contemporary, and I spent hours wandering through rooms, studying techniques, losing myself in other people's creativity. One painting stopped me cold. A woman alone in a room, light streaming through a window, her face turned toward something outside the frame. The expression on her face was complex, sad and hopeful and contemplative all at once. The title was After. I stood there for a long time looking at that painting, seeing myself in it. After divorce. After betrayal. After the life I'd thought I'd have. But also after darkness. After pain. After feeling trapped. I bought a print in the museum shop, something to take home and remind me of this moment, this feeling of possibility. That evening, I had dinner at a rooftop restaurant recommended by Patricia. The view was spectacular, the city spread out below, lights twinkling as dusk fell. I ordered champagne because why not, and toasted myself silently for being brave enough to take this trip alone. My phone buzzed. A text from Renee, "How's paradise?" I sent her a photo of the view. Better than I imagined. "You look happy in your pictures." "I'm happy. Genuinely happy." "Good. You deserve it." The rest of the week passed in a blur of experiences. I took a ghost tour, visited Bonaventure Cemetery, went on a dolphin cruise, explored Forsyth Park. I read 3 books while sitting in shaded squares. I ate at food trucks and fine dining restaurants. I talked to strangers and spent hours alone. On my last night, I went back to the restaurant where I'd met Patricia. She told me she was there most evenings, and I wanted to thank her for the conversation that had helped crystallize something for me. She was there, sitting at the same table, reading a book with a glass of wine. She looked up and smiled when she saw me. "You're still here. How's your trip been?" "Life-changing, actually." "I love to hear that. Sit, tell me everything." We talked for hours and I told her about my divorce, about rebuilding my business, about slowly figuring out who I was. She listened with the kind of attention that made you feel heard, not judged. "Can I tell you something?" she said eventually. "The best years of my life started after my divorce. Not because the divorce itself was good, but because it forced me to become the person I was always meant to be. You're at the beginning of that journey. It's going to be wonderful and scary and hard and worth it." "How long did it take you to feel like yourself again?" "About a year. But everyone's different. The important thing is to be patient with yourself. You're not trying to get back to who you were before. You're discovering who you're becoming." We exchanged contact information before I left, promising to stay in touch. Walking back to my hotel that last night, I felt a sense of peace I'd been chasing for months. The next morning, I packed slowly, not wanting to leave but ready to go home. Ready to take what I'd learned here back to my real life. On the flight back, I journaled about the trip, trying to capture the feeling of freedom and possibility I'd experienced. I wrote about Patricia and the art store owner and the cooking instructor and all the random people who'd shown me kindness. I wrote about how I'd proved to myself that I could be alone without being lonely, that I could enjoy my own company, that I didn't need someone else to make life meaningful. Landing back home felt different than leaving had. I wasn't returning to the same place I'd left, because I wasn't the same person anymore. Marcus picked me up from the airport. "How was it?" he asked as he loaded my suitcase into his car. "Perfect. Exactly what I needed." "You look different. Lighter." "I feel lighter." We got dinner at a casual place near my house and I told him about the trip, showing him photos, relaying stories. He listened with genuine interest, asking questions, laughing at the funny parts. "I'm jealous," he admitted. "Not of the trip specifically, but of whatever you found there. You seem more centered." "I think I just remembered who I am. Or figured out who I want to be. I'm not sure which, but it feels good either way." At home that night, I hung the print from the museum above my desk in the studio. After. A reminder that endings were also beginnings, that you could lose yourself and find yourself again, that the after could be better than the before. I unpacked and did laundry and settled back into my routine, but something fundamental had shifted. I'd proved to myself that I could be alone and be happy. That I didn't need anyone else to complete me or validate me or make my life worthwhile. Whatever came next, whoever came next, it would be on my terms. Because I'd finally, fully learned that the only person I needed to be enough for was myself. The manila envelope arrived on a Tuesday morning in late October, about 8 months after I'd told Julian not to come home. I knew what it was before I opened it. The return address was from the courthouse, the envelope thin but heavy with finality. Inside were the official divorce decree and related paperwork. Everything signed, everything stamped, everything legal and binding. Our marriage was officially, completely over. I sat at my kitchen table with my coffee going cold, reading through the documents. The language was formal and impersonal, reducing 6 years of marriage to a list of divided assets and dissolved obligations. House to Naomi Williams, soon to be Naomi Davis again once I filed the name change paperwork. Savings split 50-50. Debt allocated. Clean break. My phone rang. Teresa Rodriguez. Did you get the papers? She asked. Just open them. Everything looks good from my end. You're officially divorced, all assets transferred, no outstanding issues. How are you feeling? Fine. Good actually. It's weird to have it reduced to paperwork, but mostly I just feel relieved it's done. That's a normal reaction. Listen, I wanted to thank you for being such a straightforward client. Some divorces drag on for years with constant drama. Yours was refreshingly clean. That's because I wanted out more than I wanted revenge. Smart. The people who focus on revenge usually end up more miserable than their ex. You focused on moving forward. That's why you're doing well now. After we hung up, I looked around my house, really looked at it. In the 8 months since Julian had left, I'd slowly transformed every room into something that felt like mine. New paint colors, brighter and more vibrant than the neutral tones Julian had preferred. Artwork on the walls, pieces I'd collected or created myself. Plants everywhere, thriving because I actually remembered to water them now that no one was complaining about the mess. The house felt alive in a way it never had when Julian lived here. It felt like home. I called my mom to tell her the papers had arrived. She'd been supportive throughout the divorce, calling regularly to check in, visiting when she could, never once suggesting I should reconsider. How's my favorite daughter doing? She asked when she answered. I'm your only daughter. Makes you my favorite by default. What's up? Divorce is officially final. Got the papers this morning. Oh honey, how are you feeling? Relieved. Ready to move on completely. Good. You know, your father and I were talking last night. We're proud of you. You could have stayed in that marriage out of fear or stubbornness, but you respected yourself enough to leave. That takes strength. Her words made my throat tight. Thank you. Have you thought about dating? Not that you need to, but you're young and beautiful and you deserve someone who treats you right. I'm seeing someone casually. Marcus. It's not serious, but it's nice. Nice is underrated. Take your time. The right person will wait. We talked for a while longer, and she told me about my dad's latest project, restoring an old motorcycle he'd found at an estate sale. Normal, mundane family conversation that felt grounding. After lunch, I drove to the courthouse to file the name change paperwork. I'd been going by Williams for 6 years, but I wanted my maiden name back. Wanted to reclaim that part of my identity that had nothing to do with Julian. The process was simple, just forms and fees and a notary's signature. The clerk said it would take about 6 weeks to process. You changing it back after a divorce? She asked as she reviewed my paperwork. Yes. Good for you. I see a lot of women who keep their ex's name out of convenience. But sometimes it's worth the hassle to feel like yourself again. On my way out of the courthouse, I ran into the last person I expected to see. Julian walking up the steps with his lawyer. He stopped when he saw me, and for a moment we just stood there, two people who used to know everything about each other and now had nothing to say. He looked better than the last time I'd seen him. Still thin but healthier. The circles under his eyes were gone, and he was dressed neatly in slacks and a button-down shirt. Naomi, he said. Hi. Julian. Awkward silence. His lawyer excused herself and went inside, leaving us alone on the courthouse steps. I got the final papers, he said. I wanted to reach out, but I didn't know if you'd want to hear from me. Probably not. He nodded, accepting that. For what it's worth, I'm glad you got the house. It was always more yours than mine anyway. Okay. And I'm sorry. I know I said that before, but I need to say it again. I'm sorry for everything. For the affairs, for the lies, for treating you like you didn't matter. You deserved better. I looked at him, this man I'd loved and married and built a life with, and felt nothing but mild indifference. Not anger, not sadness, not even residual affection. Just nothing. Thank you for saying that, I said. I hope you're doing better. I am. Therapy's helping. I'm figuring some things out. Good. More awkward silence. A woman walked past us into the courthouse, and we both stepped aside to let her through. Well, Julian said. I should probably go. My lawyer's waiting. Good luck with whatever you're here for. Thanks. And Naomi? I really am happy that you're doing well. Angela shows me your Instagram sometimes. Your business looks like it's thriving. I didn't know how to respond to that, so I just nodded. We stood there for another few seconds. Then Julian gave me a small wave and went inside. I watched him go, then walked to my car without looking back. That evening, Renee called from Portland. She'd been there for a month now, settling into her new apartment and new job, and she called me every few days to check in. Guess who I ran into at the courthouse today? I said after we'd exchanged pleasantries. Who? Julian. What? Why was he there? I don't know. We didn't really talk beyond awkward pleasantries. But Renee, the weirdest thing happened. I didn't feel anything. Not anger, not hurt, nothing. Just neutral. That's good though, right? It means you're over it. I guess. It's just strange. 6 months ago, seeing him would have ruined my whole week. Today it was just like running into an acquaintance. Because he's not important to you anymore. He doesn't get to take up space in your head or your heart. That's growth, Naomi. We talked about her new life in Portland, how much she loved the city, how different it was from home. She'd made friends through work and was dating someone she'd met at a coffee shop. Everything was new and exciting for her, and I was genuinely happy about it, even though I missed her terribly. You should come visit, she said. Like over Christmas maybe. I'd love to show you around. I'll look at flights. After we hung up, I poured a glass of wine and stood in my backyard, looking up at the stars. October nights were cool but not cold yet, perfect weather for thinking. 8 months ago, my life had fallen apart. Or what I'd thought was my life. Looking back now, I realized that life had been falling apart for much longer, deteriorating so gradually I hadn't noticed until it was too broken to fix. But from those pieces I'd built something better. A business that was thriving. Friendships that were genuine. A relationship with Marcus that was healthy and honest, even if it wasn't serious. And most importantly, a relationship with myself that was stronger than it had ever been. I didn't need Julian anymore. Didn't need his approval or his presence or his apology. I'd moved on in every way that mattered. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Want to get dinner tomorrow? I found a new sushi place. I smiled and replied, sounds perfect. The next few weeks passed in comfortable routine. Work, dinners with Marcus, video calls with Renee, time alone that I actually enjoyed. I booked flights to Portland for Christmas and started planning what to see and do while I was there. In early November, I got an unexpected email. Simone, Julian's former affair partner, asking if we could talk. I almost deleted it, but curiosity got the better of me. I replied with my phone number and a time she could call. She called that evening, sounding nervous. Thank you for agreeing to talk to me. I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't. What do you need? I wanted to apologize again. And to tell you that I understand now what you must have felt. Julian and I dated for a few months after you two split, and he did the same thing to me that he did to you. The lies, the manipulation, the making me feel crazy for questioning him. I'm sorry. That's not fun to go through. No, it's not. But it helped me understand that it wasn't about me. It was about him. And I wanted you to know that I see that now, and I'm sorry I ever doubted you. Okay. I also wanted to tell you that I reported him to HR. For the way he treated multiple women at work, for creating a hostile environment. They're investigating and I think he might get fired. I felt a flicker of something. Not quite satisfaction but close. That's between you and him. I'm not part of that anymore. I know. I just thought you should know. He's finally facing real consequences. After we hung up, I sat with the information for a while. Part of me felt bad for Julian watching his life implode piece by piece. But a larger part felt like justice was finally being served. Not because I wanted revenge, but because actions should have consequences and Julian's actions had hurt a lot of people. I texted Renee. Simone just called. Julian might get fired for creating a hostile work environment. She replied immediately, good. He earned it. The following week, Angela called with an update. Julian got fired. Effective immediately. They escorted him out of the building yesterday. Simone told me it might happen. Mom's devastated. She keeps saying this is all your fault for divorcing him, that he wouldn't have fallen apart if you'd stayed. Do you believe that? No. Julian's problems started long before you left. You leaving just exposed them. How's he doing? Not great. He's staying with our parents for now. Looking for work but struggling because word got around about why he was fired. It's a mess. After Angela hung up, I tried to feel something about Julian's situation. Sympathy maybe or vindication. But I just felt tired. Tired of his drama still touching my life even indirectly. Tired of being expected to care about someone who'd cared so little about me. That evening, Marcus came over with Thai food and a bottle of wine. We ate on my couch and watched a documentary about musicians in New Orleans. Comfortable, easy, uncomplicated. You seem distracted, he said during a commercial break. I told him about the calls from Simone and Angela, about Julian losing his job and his life continuing to unravel. How do you feel about it? He asked. I don't know. Neutral mostly. A little sad that it came to this, but not sad enough to do anything about it. That's healthy. He made his choices and now he's living with them. You're not responsible for fixing him. I know. It's just weird to watch someone I used to care about fall apart and not feel compelled to help. It means you've moved on. Really moved on. Not just physically but emotionally. He was right. I had moved on. And Julian's problems, whatever they were, weren't mine to solve anymore. The final papers might have arrived in October, but that night on the couch with Marcus, eating Thai food and watching TV, that's when I really felt divorced. When I could hear about Julian's life falling apart and feel nothing but distance. When his problems stopped being my problems even in my own head. It was over. All of it. And I was free. Christmas came and I spent 10 days in Portland with Renee. The city was beautiful, all evergreens and rain and coffee shops on every corner. We explored neighborhoods, ate at food carts, visited Powell's City of Books, and hiked in the Columbia River Gorge despite the cold. On Christmas Eve, we sat in her apartment drinking hot chocolate spiked with peppermint schnapps, watching snow fall outside her window. I'm really glad you came, she said. It hasn't felt like home yet, but having you here helps. It's a great city. I can see why you love it. What about you? Any regrets about staying? I thought about it. No. My business is there, my clients, my house. Portland's nice to visit, but it's not where I'm supposed to be. What about Marcus? What about him? Are you two ever going to be serious, or is this friends with benefits thing permanent? I'd been wondering the same thing. Marcus and I had been seeing each other for about 6 months now, and while it was comfortable and enjoyable, neither of us had pushed for something deeper. I don't know. Maybe it's just not meant to be more than what it is. Or maybe you're both too scared to risk it. She had a point. We'd both been hurt by our divorces, both been cautious about opening up again. But caution could only protect you for so long before it started limiting you. New Year's Eve, I flew home and went straight to Marcus's place. He was hosting a small party, just a few close friends, low-key and comfortable. At midnight, we kissed as fireworks exploded over the city, visible through his living room windows. When we pulled apart, he looked at me seriously. Can we talk? Privately? We went to his bedroom and sat on the edge of his bed. My heart was racing, though I wasn't sure why. I've been thinking, he said. About us. About what this is or could be. Me too. I really care about you, Naomi. More than I've cared about anyone since my divorce. But I feel like we're both holding back, keeping things casual because we're scared. We are scared. For good reason. I know. But I'm tired of being scared. I want to try being brave instead. I want to see where this could go if we actually let it. I looked at him, this kind, patient man who'd never pushed me, never demanded more than I was ready to give. What are you saying? I'm saying I want to be with you. Really be with you. Not casually, not halfway, but all in. If you want that too. Did I want that? I'd been so focused on being independent, on proving I didn't need anyone, that I hadn't stopped to consider whether I wanted someone anyway. Not because I needed them, but because they added something good to my life. I'm scared, I admitted, of getting hurt again. Of losing myself in another relationship. I'm scared too. But Naomi, you're not the person who married Julian. You're stronger now, more sure of yourself. You wouldn't let yourself disappear again. He was right. I wasn't that person anymore. I'd spent the last year building boundaries and self-respect and a life that was genuinely mine. I wouldn't give that up for anyone. Okay, I said. Let's be brave together. He smiled and kissed me and I felt something shift inside me. Not fear but possibility. January brought new projects and new energy. I landed a contract with a regional nonprofit that wanted a complete communications overhaul. The work was meaningful and challenging, and I threw myself into it with enthusiasm I hadn't felt in years. Marcus and I fell into a new rhythm. We still maintained our separate lives and interests, but we also made time for each other in more intentional ways. Dinners that weren't just convenient but planned. Weekends spent together doing things we both enjoyed. Conversations about the future that didn't feel threatening. One evening in late February, almost exactly a year after I'd told Julian not to come home, I was working in my studio when Marcus stopped by with takeout. I was in the neighborhood, he said, holding up bags from my favorite Vietnamese place. We ate in my kitchen talking about our days. His business was growing and he was considering hiring another employee. My nonprofit project was going well, and they'd hinted at potential ongoing work. Can I ask you something? He said as we were cleaning up. Sure. Do you ever think about Julian? About what could have been different? The question surprised me. Sometimes. Not in a longing way, just wondering. But honestly, I don't think anything could have been different. He wasn't capable of being the partner I needed, and I wasn't willing to keep diminishing myself to fit his expectations. Do you think you're capable of being the partner someone needs now? I'd like to think so. I'm working on it anyway. What about you? I think I'm getting there. You've helped with that, actually. You've shown me what a healthy relationship can look like. After he left that night, I stood in my studio and looked at the paintings I'd created over the past year. They chronicled my journey from broken to healing to whole, each canvas a snapshot of where I'd been emotionally. The latest one was almost finished, all bright colors and bold strokes, confident and alive. So different from the first ones I'd painted, which had been all dark blues and muddy browns, reflecting my pain. I picked up a brush and added the final touches. When I stepped back to look at it, I felt proud. Not just of the painting but of myself. Of how far I'd come, how much I'd grown, how thoroughly I'd rebuilt my life. In March, I got unexpected news. An art gallery downtown wanted to feature my work in a group show. Nothing fancy, just local artists, but still. Someone thought my paintings were good enough to display publicly. The opening was on a Friday evening. I invited everyone who mattered. My parents, Renee flew in from Portland, Marcus, Brittany, some friends I'd reconnected with over the past year. The gallery was small but well lit, and my 6 paintings hung on one wall, looking more professional than I'd imagined they could. People wandered through, looking at the art, making comments. A woman about my age stopped in front of my painting titled, After, the one inspired by the museum in Savannah. This one speaks to me, she told her companion. There's such hope in it. I felt proud in a way I'd never felt about my design work. This was more personal, more me, and having strangers connect with it was powerful. Marcus found me by the refreshment table. Your work is incredible. I knew you were talented, but seeing it all together like this, it's impressive. Thank you. I'm proud of you. Not just for this, but for everything. For rebuilding your life, for not letting what Julian did define you. Later that evening, after most people had left, I stood in front of my paintings with Renee. Remember when you called me that first night? She said. After you told Julian to leave? I remember. I was so proud of you then, but I'm prouder now. Look at what you've built. Your business, your art, your relationships. You didn't just survive your divorce. You used it as a launching point to become someone better. I couldn't have done it without you. Yes, you could have. But I'm glad I got to be part of it. As I drove home that night, I thought about the past year. It had been the hardest of my life, but also the most transformative. I'd lost a marriage that was slowly killing me and gained myself back. I thought about Julian too briefly. Angela had told me he'd found a new job, was doing better, had started dating someone new. I hoped it worked out for him, genuinely hoped he'd learned something from his mistakes. But his happiness or lack thereof didn't affect mine anymore. My happiness was my own now. Built on my own foundation, sustained by my own efforts, independent of anyone else's validation or approval. At home, I poured a glass of wine and sat in my backyard. The night was cool but not cold, spring arriving early this year. I could hear my neighbors having a party next door, music and laughter floating over the fence. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. That was an amazing night. So proud of you. Coffee tomorrow morning? I replied, yes. My place or yours? Yours. I'll bring croissants. I smiled and set down my phone. This was my life now. Art shows and coffee dates and conversations with people who actually saw me. Work I loved and friendships that mattered and a relationship that felt healthy and real. A year ago, I'd been terrified of being alone. Now I knew I was never really alone. I had myself and that was enough. Everything else was just extra. The year had started with me telling Julian not to come home. It was ending with me finally, fully coming home to myself. 1 year and 3 months after I'd sent that text to Julian, I was standing in a different house. Not mine, but one I was considering buying. It was bigger than my current place, with a detached studio in the backyard that would be perfect for my art. 3 bedrooms, updated kitchen, a yard large enough for the garden I'd been wanting to start. The realtor, a cheerful woman named Sandra, walked me through for the second time. What do you think? I love it. But it feels like a lot of space for just me. You could have guessed. Or maybe it won't be just you forever. She glanced at Marcus, who'd come along for the viewing. Maybe, I said noncommittally. After Sandra left to let us discuss privately, Marcus and I walked through the empty rooms again. It's a great house, he said. But only if you really want it. Don't buy it for potential future roommates or partners. Buy it because you love it. That's what I loved about Marcus. He never pushed, never assumed, never made me feel like I owed him a future just because we'd been dating for over a year. I do love it. The studio alone is worth it. Then buy it. I made an offer that afternoon. It was accepted by evening. The next few weeks were a blur of mortgage paperwork and inspections and planning. I'd be moving in late June, which gave me time to pack and organize and figure out what furniture I wanted to keep. My business had continued to grow. I now had 2 assistants, Brittany and a newer hire named Jade, and we were handling more projects than I'd ever thought possible. The nonprofit work had turned into a steady stream of socially conscious organizations wanting design help, which felt more meaningful than corporate branding ever had. In May, I got a call from Patricia, the woman I'd met in Savannah. We'd stayed in touch over the past year, occasional emails and video calls, and she'd become an unlikely mentor. I have a proposition for you, she said. I'm hosting a group show at my gallery this summer, featuring women artists over 40 who started their careers late. But I'd love to include a few younger voices who've also had late starts. Would you be interested? Your gallery? In Savannah? Yes. It would be a 3-month installation, June through August. You'd need to provide at least 8 pieces. My heart raced. Yes. Absolutely yes. Wonderful. Send me images of what you're thinking and we'll finalize details. After we hung up, I sat in shock for a moment. A real gallery show, not just a local group exhibition but a curated show in a respected gallery. It felt surreal and terrifying and exactly right. I called Marcus first, then Renee, then my parents. Everyone was excited and supportive, offering to fly to Savannah for the opening in June. The next month was chaos. Packing for the move, creating new artwork for the gallery, managing client projects, and trying to maintain some semblance of personal life. Marcus helped when he could, showing up with food and encouragement when I was stressed. The night before my move, he came over with pizza and wine. We sat on my living room floor, surrounded by boxes, eating off paper plates. Are you excited about the new place? He asked. Excited and terrified. It's the biggest purchase I've ever made on my own. You're going to love it. And I can't wait to see what you do with that studio. We ate in comfortable silence for a while, then Marcus set down his pizza and looked at me seriously. I've been thinking about something, he said. About us. My stomach clenched. Okay. We've been together for almost a year and a half. And it's been great. But I feel like we're both still holding back a little, still keeping escape routes open just in case. That's not fair. Let me finish. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I think we both needed that safety at first. But I don't need it anymore. I know what I want, and what I want is you. A real future with you. Moving in together, building a life together, all of it. I felt panic and hope warring inside me. Marcus, I'm not asking you to make any decisions right now. You're moving into your new house, focusing on your art show. I just wanted you to know where I stand. When you're ready, if you're ready, I'm here. What if I'm never ready? What if I like living alone? Then I'll respect that. But Naomi, you've proven you can be independent. You've rebuilt your entire life on your own terms. The question isn't whether you can be alone. It's whether you want to be. I thought about that after he left. Did I want to be alone? I'd spent the past year glorying in my independence, in making my own choices, in not having to consider anyone else's needs or preferences. But was I glorying in it, or was I just protecting myself? The move happened on a Saturday. My parents came to help, along with Renee, who'd flown in for the weekend, Marcus, and a couple of other friends. We got everything moved in one day, though unpacking would take weeks. That night, after everyone had left, I stood in my new house and felt something close to joy. This was mine. Not mine and Julian's, not mine by default after a divorce. Just mine. Chosen deliberately, purchased with money I'd earned, a symbol of how far I'd come. The gallery show in Savannah was 3 weeks later. I drove down with 8 paintings, each one representing a different stage of my journey over the past year and a half. Patricia had titled the show Becoming, which felt exactly right. The opening was packed. Patricia's gallery was well regarded, and the show had gotten good press. I stood by my wall of paintings, watching strangers look at my work, listening to their comments, feeling exposed and proud in equal measure. These are powerful, a man about my dad's age said. You can see the evolution. The early ones are about pain, but by the end, they're about triumph. Thank you. That's exactly what I was trying to capture. Marcus had flown down for the opening along with Renee. My parents couldn't make it, but they'd sent flowers that now sat on the gallery's front desk. We all went to dinner afterward to the restaurant where I'd first met Patricia. To Naomi, Patricia said, raising her glass. To new beginnings and second chances and the courage to become who you were always meant to be. We all drank to that, and I felt grateful for these people, for their presence in my life, for their support through everything. 2 months later, in August, Patricia called with news. Someone wants to buy all 8 paintings. A collector from Atlanta. She'll pay your asking price for the complete series. I almost dropped my phone. All of them? All of them. She was moved by the story they tell together. Says she's been through something similar and your work helped her process it. The sale would bring in enough money to fund my art for the next year without worrying about income from design work. It felt like validation and possibility wrapped together. That evening, Marcus came over to celebrate. I'd made dinner, something I did more regularly now, remembering how much I enjoyed cooking when I wasn't doing it under criticism. Over dessert, he brought up what we talked about the night before my move. Have you thought any more about what I said? About us building a real future together? I had thought about it. I thought about it constantly, actually. Weighing my independence against the possibility of partnership. Examining my fears and desires with the kind of honesty I'd learned over the past year. I said. And I think I'm ready. Not to rush into anything, but to start moving in that direction. Maybe you spend more nights here, we start planning things further ahead, we see how it feels. Really? Really? You were right. I've proven I can be alone. Now I want to see if I can be with someone without losing myself. You won't lose yourself. I won't let you, and you won't let yourself. You're too strong for that now. We talked late into the night about what our future might look like. Both keeping our own spaces for now but spending more time together. Combining some aspects of our lives while maintaining independence in others. Building something new that didn't follow anyone else's template. September came and I turned 31. Marcus threw me a party at his place, inviting all my closest friends. Renee flew in from Portland. My parents drove up. Even Angela, Julian's sister, came, having maintained her friendship with me despite the divorce. Have you heard from Julian lately? I asked Angela quietly during the party. Not much. He's living in another state now, trying to start fresh. I think he finally realized he needed to make real changes. I hope it works out for him. Do you really? I thought about it. Yeah, I do. Not because I care about him specifically anymore, but because I don't want him to keep hurting people. If he's genuinely changing, that's good for everyone. Later that night, after everyone had left except Marcus and Renee, we sat on Marcus's balcony looking at the city lights. I can't believe it's been almost 2 years, Renee said. Since that night you told Julian not to come home. Best decision I ever made. Second best, Marcus said, pulling me closer. Best was deciding to trust someone again. That's cheesy, I said, but I was smiling. It's also true. As October turned to November, I settled into a routine that felt right. Work that I loved, art that fulfilled me, relationships that were healthy and mutual. Some mornings I woke up alone in my house and reveled in the quiet. Other mornings I woke up next to Marcus and appreciated the companionship. One evening I was in my studio working on a new painting when my phone rang. An unknown number, but local. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? Naomi? This is Simone. I hadn't heard from her in months, not since she'd called to tell me about reporting Julian. Hi. What's up? I wanted to let you know that I'm getting married. And I wanted to thank you. Thank me? For what? For standing your ground. For showing me what self-respect looks like. After everything with Julian, I almost swore off relationships entirely. But then I met someone who actually treats me right, and I realized the difference. So thank you. You didn't owe me any kindness, but you showed it anyway, and it mattered. After we hung up, I felt something settle inside me. All the pain and drama of the past 2 years had served a purpose. Not just for me, but for others too. My story had helped Simone recognize her worth. Maybe it would help someone else someday. December arrived, bringing cold weather and holiday preparations. Marcus and I decided to spend Christmas together, splitting time between his family and mine. It felt significant, meeting families as a real couple rather than just casually dating. On Christmas Eve, we were at my house decorating my tree when he pulled out a small box. My heart jumped, but he immediately said, "It's not what you think." Not yet, anyway. Inside was a key. To my place, he explained. I'm not asking you to move in. I'm just saying you're welcome whenever you want for as long as you want. You have a space in my life and I wanted you to have a literal key to represent that. I kissed him, feeling grateful and hopeful and still a little scared, but in a good way. The kind of scared that comes with new beginnings rather than bad endings. As the year wound down, I found myself reflecting on everything that had changed. 2 years ago, I'd been married and miserable, invisible in my own life. Now I was divorced and thriving, more visible and authentic than I'd ever been. I built a business that sustained me financially and creatively. I developed friendships that were genuine and reciprocal. I created art that meant something to me and to others. I'd learned to be alone without being lonely, and to be with someone without losing myself. Julian had texted me once in December a simple message: "I saw your gallery show made the news. Congratulations. You deserve all the success." I'd replied, "Thank you. I hope you're well." And I meant it. Not because I cared about him specifically, but because I'd moved so far past our relationship that I could afford to be generous. On New Year's Eve, Marcus and I went to the same party where we decided to be brave together a year ago. At midnight, we kissed as fireworks exploded over the city. "What are you hoping for this year?" he asked when we pulled apart. "More of the same, honestly. More growth, more art, more time with people I love." "What about you?" "The same. And maybe when you're ready we take the next step. Whatever that looks like." I smiled and kissed him again. "Maybe." Later that night, standing on his balcony looking at the city, I thought about that text I'd sent Julian 2 years ago. 7 words that had changed everything. "I'm not your wife anymore. Don't come back." Those words had ended one life and started another. They'd been terrifying to send, but they'd also been liberating. They'd been the beginning of becoming the person I was always meant to be. I pulled out my phone and took a photo of the city lights, then posted it to Instagram with a caption: "2 years ago, I chose myself. Best decision I ever made." Marcus came up behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist. "Ready to go inside? It's freezing out here." "In a minute." "I'm just taking it all in." "Taking what in?" "This. My life. How different everything is now. How much better." He kissed the top of my head. "You did that. You made it better." "We did that," I corrected. "I couldn't have done it alone." "Yes, you could have. But I'm glad you didn't have to." We went inside, into the warmth and light, into the life I'd chosen deliberately and built carefully. A life that was mine, that reflected who I really was rather than who I thought I should be. The next morning, the first day of the new year, I woke up in Marcus's bed feeling content. My phone had messages from friends and family, New Year's greetings and well wishes. I responded to each one, grateful for the people in my life. Then I got up and made coffee, watching the sun rise over the city through Marcus's kitchen window. In a few hours, we'd go to brunch with friends. Later, I had a video call scheduled with Renee. Tomorrow, I'd start work on a new project, a series of paintings exploring joy rather than healing. But right now, in this moment, I was just here, present and grateful and at peace. 2 years ago, 15 missed calls had terrified me. Now, looking back, I realized they'd been the sound of a door closing. And every door that closes makes room for a new one to open. My new door had led here, to this life, to this version of myself. Strong and independent and capable of love that didn't diminish me. It had been a hard journey, but I wouldn't change it. Because I'd found something better than the marriage I'd lost. I'd found myself. And that was worth everything.